Welcome, I'm Joy Bina, and this is Take Back Your Power and Do It with Food.
Welcome, I'm Rita Rivera, and this is our third episode in the trilogy, Sugar, Fat, and Salt. And today's conversation is going to be about salt. And salt is something that's been highly prized for thousands of years across all cultures and continents. Yet, over the past few decades, excess salt or sodium intake has been blamed for a variety of serious health conditions that plague our country, such as heart disease, hypertension, and even stroke.
Salt is crucial for maintaining the health of every cell in the human system. It permeates the extracellular fluid, which is the fluid between the cells that bathes every living cell. Sodium is also so important in our blood, our lymphatic fluid, and it's necessary for the production of hydrochloric acid, which we know is so critical to digestion. It's a digestive enzyme that is secreted by the stomach. Sodium is required for the proper functioning of our nerves and the contraction of our muscles, including the all-important heart muscle.
Finally, sodium is necessary to maintain several kinds of equilibrium: fluid balance, electrolyte balance, and our pH, which is the acid-alkaline balance. All these things are critical for the health and well-being of our body. Considering these many crucial roles that sodium plays, it's clear that if we had no sodium, we would cease to exist. And simply stated, salt is essential for life. We could not survive without it. It is required to maintain good balance and optimal health. In fact, evidence is mounting that a low salt diet may actually lead to serious health consequences: higher overall mortality, particularly in conditions like heart disease and diabetes.
So what we must understand is that our table salt has absolutely nothing at all in common with the salt we're speaking about. Anti-caking agents, genetically modified dextrose, added calcium carbonate, and the excessive heat used to dry table salt over 1200 degrees Fahrenheit completely alters the natural chemical structure. So what remains is sodium chloride, which your body experiences as a totally foreign substance. In order for the body to metabolize this salt, it must sacrifice a great deal of energy. For every gram of sodium chloride, your body uses 23 times the amount of cell water to neutralize it. You can imagine the havoc that creates over a period of time.
Sodium chloride is added so insidiously and so routinely to foods by manufacturers that it's difficult to escape from it. From obviously salted snack foods like chips, pretzels, party nuts, to basic staples like soups, sauces, and breads, the unhealthy sodium chloride, it's there. It's even hidden in cereals, cornflakes, and actually even in desserts. Pudding. Sodium chloride is the main pizzazz factor that food corporations pay scientists billions of dollars to research. How can we improve the flavor, and how can we addict those consumers? What do? Let's check in with Elizabeth Borelli. Elizabeth has been with us for the first two episodes, the first on sugar and the second on fats. And I'm so happy that she's here again to talk to us about salt. So welcome, Elizabeth Borelli.
Thank you, Rita. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's wonderful. So Elizabeth, I'd love for you to talk to us about why there is so much salt in our diets.
Good question. Well, as we've discussed throughout all of these episodes, we are a society that's heavily reliant upon processed foods. So 75% of the food we eat in general comes in a package. And while that might not necessarily be bad, unfortunately, we are getting 80% of our salt from packaged foods and from eating out.
Really, 80%.
Yeah.
That's substantial.
Right. So, unfortunately, the packaged foods that we're eating typically contain too many of the ingredients we want to avoid and not enough of the nutrients we really need in our diets.
Yes.
And salt is a prime example. So, one way to cut back on the amount of salt in your diet is to eat less processed food. And that's really kind of consistent with your recommendations throughout these 3 episodes. And by kind of controlling more what you put into your body, you of course can very easily limit the amount of sodium chloride, which is the unhealthy version of salt in your diet.
There are so many processed foods on the market. And if we were going to be very conscious shoppers, what would be some tips you could give us about shopping and salt intake?
Well, one thing we can do is, as usual, remember to look at the food label. So when we look at the nutrition label that we have here, we can see and we can use a tip that comes from nutrition expert and author Jeff Novick.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and he recommends looking at the milligrams of salt on the package and making sure it's a 1-to-1 ratio between the number of calories per serving and the milligrams of salt per serving. And that's a good way to tell whether it's got too much salt for that particular product. And you may want to put that back and find another version that has less salt in it.
Exactly. So it's about reading labels
It's
again.
always about reading
We've
labels.
talked about that for sugar, we've
Right.
talked about that for fats, and salts are equally as important to read on labels.
Absolutely. Another thing is a lot of new healthier products are coming out, healthier versions of traditional products like potato chips and crackers. And for those of us who really love to snack and want to treat now and then, we can find versions of our favorite snacks that have sea salt or natural salt alternatives, Himalayan salt, healthier versions than just plain old sodium chloride. So if you see that on a label, that would be a better choice.
I have seen chips on the market that have been coming out lately that are made with Himalayan or sea salt.
Yeah, it's a growing trend and it's a positive one. So
Yeah.
for those of us who don't want to abandon our processed food snacks entirely, that's a good option.
Yeah, and it's a better choice for our kids too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Elizabeth is the author of 2 fantastic books. One is called Beanalicious Living, and it's everything you really want to know about beans with incredible recipes. And the second book is a book on sprouting for children. So if you have little ones at home, it's a fantastic book to have around the house. So Elizabeth, in closing, I just really want to thank you so much for the energy that you've brought to this trilogy that we've done, and for teaching us and guiding us how we can be smarter shoppers by reading labels.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to be a part of your important work. You and Joy are really doing such a great service to the community by providing this really important information.
It's important to become a label reader. No matter where you buy your food, you have to pay attention to what's in it. Don't forget that the overwhelming majority of the unhealthy salt Americans consume is hidden in processed foods. This means that you have to be skeptical about every processed food that you're even considering buying. Don't let the hidden sodium chloride sneak past you in the grocery store. What then is our choice? What is the healthy choice? I use and recommend Himalayan salt. Himalayan crystal salt has spent over 250 million years maturing in the mountain caves of Pakistan under extreme tectonic pressure, far away from exposure to impurities. The salt's unique structure stores vibrational energy, and all of its 84 inherent minerals and trace elements are available in colloidal form. Those are tiny enough for your body to readily absorb them. And just a word regarding sea salt as an alternative. Keep in mind that the oceans are being used as a dumping ground for harmful toxic poisons. Because of these toxins, up to 90% of sea salt producers, they have to refine their salt, and the refining process removes precious minerals. What you're looking for in your shopping and on your foods is a full spectrum salt. Easily identified by the color, the Himalayan salt is pink, which is evidence that the minerals have not been removed by processing. There are also really good other full spectrum salts on the market, like Celtic or real salt. My preference, though, is the Himalayan salt, and your local Trader Joe's now carries it, so it's actually very easy to find. And if you dine out quite a bit, I recommend that maybe carry some of the Himalayan salt with you in some small packets, so you never have to use the table salt again. So now we're going to take it to the next level. How else can we further benefit from this amazing natural substance that comes from our primordial seas? Here's a morning elixir practice that Joy Bina has been doing for 12 years. And this is to bring her body into balance every morning.
That's right, Rita. I've been doing this morning practice every day now for 12 years. When water and salt are combined, a new substance is formed called sole. The word sole is derived from the Latin word sol, which means sun. It's believed that sole is as close as you can get to the liquid materialization of sunlight, and we know how important sunlight is. Understand that this isn't just any sunlight. It's unlocking and ingesting 250 million year old sunlight. Sole is a living substance. When water and Himalayan salt connect, the structure of both the water and the salt changes to create something entirely new. The elements have liberated themselves from their restrictions and reached a higher form of energy, a new crystalline structure so profound that its vibration lasts over 24 hours in the body. By drinking Sole daily, you can infuse your body with much needed minerals, so lacking in our soil today. You can replace electrolytes and balance your energy simply and naturally. It balances the pH factor of your body and helps to get rid of heavy metals like lead, arsenic, mercury, in addition to metabolizing calcium deposits throughout your body, especially in your joints. A dear friend was suffering from a bone spur on his shoulder, and being a carpenter, it affected his ability to work. The medical prognosis was that absolutely only surgery could remedy the problem. But with a little coaxing, he decided to try the Sole practice, hoping to find some relief, and a couple of months later, the bone spur had disappeared completely. Since then, other friends have also taken on this practice, and those who have joint pain have similar reports of it disappearing. So I'm going to show you the very simple process of how to make a Sole. I have water, good, clean water, in a mason jar, and I'm going to put, 4 or 5 rocks right into the water. So you can see the rock crystals in the mason jar, and you can take a look at these beautiful rocks. So though Himalayan salt, as Rita said, is pretty easy to find at Trader Joe's, these beautiful rocks are not so easy to find, but you can check out my website, consciousinthekitchen.com, and I do have them available for you. So those are the rocks, and here they are in the water, and it will take about 24 hours for this water to become saturated with the salt, and then those rocks will not dissolve any further. It's actually a 26% solution, and if you've seen that in 24 hours all the rocks are gone, simply add another rock. And that's the dance that you do. As time goes on, if there are no rocks, add another rock or two. And then what we do is every morning, and we're going to pretend this has been 24 hours, and this is at a 26% saturation. Every morning, we take a teaspoon of this 26% saturated salt solution, and we put it in a glass. And then we fill the glass with water. And, you know, this water is room temperature water, and I recommend that it be at least that, because you don't want to put your digestive fire out first thing in the morning with cold water. And then, and I again do this first thing. I have not had any tea or coffee or food. This is what I do first thing. I drink it, and I'm grateful because I'm hydrating my body. I am mineralizing my body. I am alkalining my body, and a great way to start the day.
So before we conclude our trilogy, we're going to share with you some highly nutritious recipes, vegetable salad. And this is one of my favorites. I have steamed some broccoli, and if you like, you could also add some cauliflower or some chopped carrots, but for this, we just have some broccoli. And I am going to also add, I've taken the stems of the broccoli and chopped them up to give some crunch to the salad. So I'm just going to add the stems of the broccoli. The stems I haven't steamed, although the broccoli is steamed slightly for a few minutes. And then I like to add some fresh walnuts to the salad, also for crunch. But if you remember from our earlier episodes, the walnuts are very high in omega-3s. So it's a great thing to add. And then I also like a little bit of onion in my salad, some fresh red onion. You could also use some green onion. And just to your taste, whatever you like. And I particularly am a fan of cilantro. So I like to put a lot of cilantro in my vegetable salad. And if you have some fresh parsley, that's also another really great thing to add. And then for this particular dressing, we're using a little bit of garlic powder, just to your liking, not that much. And I also like to add a little bit of basil, some dried basil, which gives it a nice touch, again, to your liking. And then we are going to add our beautiful pink Himalayan salt. So if you haven't used the Himalayan salt before, it does add a lot of salt flavor. So I would suggest starting with a smaller amount at first. And then if it's not quite right, you can add a little bit more. I'm going to add a little bit more here. And you can feel creative when you do this. Perhaps you have a ripe tomato or a ripe avocado added into your salad. And then I add some fresh, maybe about 1.5 tablespoons of lemon juice, freshly squeezed. And then with that, I also love to add some organic pomegranate balsamic vinegar. And you can, again, use a balsamic of your choice, but I love the balance between fresh lemon and a little bit of balsamic. And of course, olive oil we talked about in our episode on fats, really healthy in the monounsaturated fats. And just to your liking, I would put maybe about 1/3 cup on this, and we're good to go. So it's just about stirring all of these yummy vegetables and spices together and sharing them with family and friends.
This is an incredibly nutritious brownie, and you don't have to tell people that it's raw because they would never believe it. And it's actually one of my 10 most nutritious recipes in the book. That's how loaded it is with nutrition. So we're going to begin by making the batter, if you will, and it's a cup of cacao powder, wonderful raw cacao powder. We're going to just put it in the food processor. And we'll get that out of the way. And then we're going to add 2.5 cups of walnuts, again loaded with omega-3s. And this is the basic batter. So in the Cuisinart now is the cacao and the walnuts, and we're going to add 1/2 cup of delicious and nutritious hemp seeds. You really ought to try just sprinkling it on your salad sometime. They're wonderful, loaded with omega-3s. And likewise, 1/2 cup of chia seeds. And we're going to put 1/2 teaspoon of Himalayan salt. Just going to put a little sprinkle. Okay. While this is turning around in our food processor, we're going to add the coconut nectar. And coconut nectar is a wonderful low glycemic sweetener. And it will act to adhere the batter and make it so easy to either make into a cake plate or little brownie balls. So here we go. The recipe states a cup of coconut nectar. Some of you may like it sweeter. If you're making your brownies for your kids, maybe they like it to taste a little sweeter. And some of you may like it to taste less sweet. So I'm going to add a little bit more. The important piece is that the batter then sticks together. So this is a fun batter because you need to taste it as it goes. And then as a finishing touch, I always like to add coconut oil. It doesn't need the coconut oil in terms of sticking the mixture together because the coconut nectar does that beautifully. But we know that this is so loaded with good stuff that I add it to recipes whenever I can. So probably putting a couple of tablespoons of coconut oil in there. All right, so the mixture is complete, and you can see how it sticks together so beautifully. And you just simply, again, you can flatten it out into a cake pan, or you can roll it into balls. And I'm going to make a few brownie balls now, and we'll put it in the freezer and come back in a minute and give it a bite because it will be so delicious. And so how long did that take? You could actually be sitting there after dinner and going, I think I'd like to have a brownie. And 15 minutes later, you have a brownie. And so nutritious. You know, we live in a very polluted world. Since the 1940s, 77,000 chemicals have been introduced into our environment, and each of us have an average of 260 foreign chemicals in our body at any given moment. Daily, chemicals are dumped into our atmosphere, and what our corporations are dumping into our environment would take the rest of this show to elaborate on. We need to do what we can to protect our bodies from this horrific onslaught of toxins. And the additional challenge, of course, is that we live in a toxic food culture. What's considered normal is eating food that's full of unhealthy sugar, rancid fats, and depleting salt. Food corporations are exploiting the environment and jeopardizing the future of life on this planet while they poison us and profit from our misery. We're used to eating food that's about instant pleasure, having nothing to do with our health, and preventing our thriving. Remember, food corporations continue to spend billions of dollars hiring the most brilliant scientists tasked with finding what they call the craveability factor. It's their intention to addict us to their products, and their products have abuse potential similar to addictive drugs. Most everyone watching this has some level of addiction to one, if not all, of the three in this trilogy. Our brain chemistry and our taste buds have been hijacked, and a strong commitment must be made to reclaim our sovereignty. We know that when you stop eating binge foods, which are processed foods containing sugar, fat, and salt, you will dramatically reduce your cravings and addictive feelings. Armed with the knowledge of how the food industry is working against you, you can break the hold of those addictive feelings. You know, initially it won't be easy. Food addictions can be as debilitating as drugs or alcohol. The processed toxic food you reach for is designed to lead you astray and create addiction. Don't let it. Break the cycle. Sugar is more addictive than cocaine, and one would not tell a cocaine addict to just have less. Your addictive feelings are biochemical. Willpower will lose out if you continue to indulge. You need to give your body a fighting chance. You know, we know this is heavy stuff. We've been victim to this biochemical hijacking, and these toxic substances are in everything. We cannot build a strong house on a rotten foundation. So what do? We reach for the raw honey and try stevia and coconut sugar. We get some coconut oil and begin experimenting with all the ways you can include this delicious saturated fat. Enjoy healthy fats guilt-free, and remember how critical they are to include in your diet. Don't forget to include the omega-3 anti-inflammatory fats, and throw out your table salt, replacing it with beautiful pink Himalayan salt.
By doing this to your body, mind and spirit will begin to thrive. You'll have support to step into your gifts and talents and be on top of your game, contributing to a world that is in need of exactly what you have to offer.
Take Back Your Power and Do It With Food hosts Joy Bina and Rita Rivera are both authors. Check out Joy's book, The 10 Most Nutritious Recipes on the Planet and a Step into Radiant Health. And Rita Rivera's book, Milks Alive, 140 Delicious and Nutritious Recipes for Fresh Nut and Seed Milks.